Let's talk about how your marketing in terms of the biz dev side evolved. What was the strategy initially, and how has it evolved to kind of currently what you're doing now?
Well, let me start off by saying it took a lot of prayer, right? So, I mean, I'm not saying that tongue in cheek. I mean it sincerely. Like, we were just like, God, we do not know what to do. Help us out here, show us. And God has always been faithful to us. I'm a big believer. My wife and I are both Christians. And, we believe that the whole purpose of our lives is to serve other people. So we started off there. And it's interesting because, if you get to know my wife and myself, my wife has a lot of energy. She has a great story. She walked across the border at 14 with a backpack and her little brother and
Wow.
her mom and a little 1-year-old brother. She was put in foster care. This is back in they were always separating families at the border. Like, this is a new political thing, but the truth is they always separated families at the border. And she was put in foster care. Her mom went to jail. And even though she was Cuban and they got asylum, presumptively, they still had the processing thing. And so she was, a 14-year-old with her 1-year-old brother in a foster home that was rough at the border. It's rough. I mean, her necklace got stolen. She had a couple things and that was it. And so she's like, I really want to serve people, because she knew how scary that situation was. So she had this passion for helping her people. And I consider them my people too, because now I have kids with her and they're Cubans. So, or at least they speak Spanish. And so she had this passion for that. And so when we aligned, I really think God put us together. I'm the systems processes manager, like corporate guy, and I had trial experience. So I felt comfortable. Look, if we need to try a case, I can try a case. My wife really had no experience, but she knew she wanted to help people, and she had a great story. And so how we actually started, and there's a God story behind this too, because I remember we gave some money to a church and we prayed. I call it planting a seed. And basically what happened is we got a good settlement on a case I had taken with me. And then we just decided to try an advertising contract on a local radio station. And everybody told us radio doesn't work. But I was like, well, let's give it a try. And it didn't work for 2 months. And I said, and we bought like a 6-month contract. And I said, well, you know what? We're going to go out in a blaze of glory. I took the 4 months remaining and I said, do it all in 1 month. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off. It's going to work or not work. We hadn't got any calls. And sure enough, we quadrupled that ad, and we got a call. And it was a nose fracture, and it was, we'll do the case. I, did the demand. I know how to do demand. I do the demand. I send the demand letter, and we get a tender back for $50,000. And I'm thinking, holy moly, are you kidding me? And because I'm doing billable work at this point, and nobody wants to pay billable work. They're all like, every invoice nickel and dime. And I had clients stolen from me for price competition, all this stuff. And I get a check, and I'm like, I just had to send a letter? Are you kidding me? This is easy. And I said, let's take all that money, put it back in another advertising contract. And we did it. And we started small. I mean, there was like one case, and then 2, then 3, then 5, then 10, then 20, then 30, then 50, and we're hitting other radio stations now. And then we started going all Spanish. And then we started going TV, a little bit, more TV. And so we scaled up. So we started off there, and now we're well over 400 cases a month and over hundreds of employees now. But it started small, and we focused on who we were and just told that story on a very small radio station. But we tested it and made sure that it was working. And as soon as I knew it would work, I said, and by the way, that 4-month budget became my 1-month budget. Because I said, okay, I'm going to get one case, so I'm going to spend these 4 months. And then, so a point for the young lawyers, I believe there's something called what I call the tipping point, where if you don't buy a big enough advertising contract, you will not reach a certain saturation and you will not get calls at all. But you cross the tipping point, and it may just be another 20 or 30%, but you cross the tipping point, then you're actually at critical mass. You can get cases. Then you run that up to a marginal return number, right? So you take it, and I'm using some concepts here, but basically, let's say you're spending $10,000 and that's your tipping point. You start getting cases. You need to get, people say 10 to 15% cost per case. Then you say, okay, well, let's try 20,000 a month when you got the money. And if you get, 20 cases, then it's great. Well, let's try 30,000 a month. You get 30 cases. Then you try 40,000 a month and you get 32 cases. And you're like, okay, I've reached the point where I can't. And there's some seasons and there's some timing and other things. Another little pointer out there for all of you young lawyers. The media, the ads, the TV stations and radios, they are vultures. Ben Glass says this, they're vultures, and they will give you their crummiest spots. So you've got to make sure you're tracking when your spots are airing. what works for you for your calls. So, I mean, you got to pay attention to this. Now, I do that. So that was my natural thing. I'm like, you got to test everything. And then and even the ad reps be like, you can't track this stuff. Be like, if I can't track it, I'm not going to do it. And so you got to be firm about that, you guys out there. You got to be like, no, I'm going to track it. I'm only going to air one spot to see if I get a call. Oh, by the way, a way you can do this, a testing way, is that you can do a giveaway. Call a radio station, say, hey, I want to give away $500. You're paying $500 for the spot, so might as well give another $500. And if you get phone calls, they're listening and they're responding to that radio station, right? So another little trick, by the way, we'll talk about ad tricks. Like, there are some people, like, they've got 1 million followers on Instagram, or they've got, the highest rated TV station, right? But their followers aren't engaged. They're just background noise. Whereas you've got some guys who are like local talent that's huge engagement. And, so they could be, 1/10 the size of the biggest TV station, but may have an avid followership. And so this is with like Instagram influencers and other people, if you want to start working with some of them. Some of them, you have two guys who both have 100,000 followers. One has 100,000 followers where they don't buy anything. The other one has 100,000 followers where you got 10,000 people who live and die by everything they say. It's not the same. You got to figure out a way to find that out. And so we test for that. And that's just my evolution of things. Hopefully that helps some people, but you got to be intentional about it and never listen to the ad reps because they'll sell you their garbage for premium. And they're like, I don't know why it's not working. You gave me the lowest rated show and nobody likes the guy. And
here's the
like,
inventory we have.
Exactly. So you got to be intentional about that.
And then sometimes they don't even play it in those slots too. So
right.
There's, geez, I have so many follow-up questions here. So many follow-up questions. Because, first of all, that was super tactical. I hope everyone maybe even does a little 30 seconds and replays that what you just stated again, because there's so much power in what you said. I want to key in and ask your point of view on a few things. First of all, we just had Gary Sarner on. He does a ton of radio, and he's talking about radio. A lot of times when we're talking about branding, it's measured in CPMs, cost per thousand impressions. How does that stack up? Like, what's the CPMs look like in radio? What's the CPMs look like in TV? Because I've seen the OTT, the new thing, and those CPMs are crazy expensive. Now, I know you can hit a different type of, demographic and personality set, but I know that TV and radio has been around forever, but it just seems like still, even today, it's a solid investment.
We work with TV and radio. We like that. We get a lot of referrals now from former clients, and we've got some other things. We're doing the online stuff, which I think is obviously the future. No one's disputing that.
Yep.
I'm going to tell you my experience. This was before OTT. There was Pandora, and let me tell you how much money I lost on that. Right. So a lot of this stuff is, I go to the conferences, the same ones that everybody else goes to, and I hear what they're saying. I'm the sergeant in the trenches. I can tell you what's going to work. You got some general back in whatever it is, or more accurately, you've got a vendor who's trying to sell you something that they're going to justify for you why it makes sense. I'm the guy in the trenches who's saying, yeah, that's going to work or it's not going to work, or test it. Just test it, right? If somebody says you're going to need 6 months to get results, that's a dangerous thing. I'm not saying it's wrong, right? There have been some TV stations that's taken us 6 months to get results, but you got to have the budget to be able to deal with that. And the other big mistake I see people making, I'll answer your question, but let me say one other thing. Don't jump in the deep end too fast. Okay. Because this is a thing you can blow. Like, I see this happens all the time. People always try and take our market share. Like, we have an incredible war chest right now. And if I see there's a real threat, I'm going to just saturate it and no one can come on and take over any of our media. And I also have exclusive relationships with a lot of the media we're doing now. And we pay a little bit more than that because we protect our space. But be careful, because somebody will get a hit. They'll settle a case for, let's say, they get a $100,000 fee. They're like, we're going to put all this into TV. Well, be careful. Like, start small. Like, everybody wants to come and be the big guy all of a sudden. And I'm in Florida, so I'm up against Morgan and Newland and in county. Robert Rubenstein is down here in Miami-Dade County, and he was the big guy until we came along. I think we're actually a little bigger than him. Don't tell him I said that. But so be careful jumping the deep end. And I'll tell you the other thing. I'm sure you saw this. We had a $100+ million settlement recently. Confidential, I can't talk about the case. But I'll be honest with you. If I got in that case when I was a 5th or even a 10th year lawyer, I could not have handled it, right? And so some of you guys will get this big case and you'll be like, oh, I'm going to kill it. And there were big lawyers out there who were saying we should settle the case for significantly less than that. And I'm like, no, we've got a war chest. I've run another law firm as well. We got a war chest. We're ready to go. We'll take the case if we go to trial, if we have to go there, but I see young lawyers sometimes they try and get ahead of themselves or our egos get in the way and we make mistakes. So don't overextend yourself on that. And especially with advertising contracts, because you're like, oh, if I just do what Greg is doing, I'm going to get the same results. Well, we've been doing it for over 10 years now. But more importantly, like we're extremely tactical about what we're doing. And I mean, I just recently cut a TV station because they weren't cutting it. And, I had to make the decision that someone else is going to come in there and saturate that market, but I have to be 100% sure that that's not going to work out. But you got to be intentional with what you're doing. And if you get $100,000, because I see this, and then here's what the other thing is, the vultures, here's what they're going to do. They get that $100,000 contract and they come back to me and they say, Greg, you got this guy coming and spending $100,000 and it's da-da-da-da, and now the cost for ads are going up and da-da-da. Noise. I know the firm. I know they got 2 lawyers and 2 assistants. They're not, even if they get the cases, they'll mess them up. So just like build your structure slow and steady. I swear to you, if you take your time and you do it right and know what your message is and know who your client is and know what your core values are and know what you stand for, take the time, because now I'm looking back 10 years and we have 135 employees now. It took 10 years, but that seems like this. I swear to you, it was like overnight. But, there was a time when it was 10 people, but you got to learn how to handle 20 people and 30 people and all that stuff. So what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of noise around advertising. There's a lot of noise around marketing. The truth is what clients are looking for is authenticity. They're looking for your story. They're looking for who you are as a human being. And you've got to be consistent with your story. And you've got to be, in your messaging. You talk about branding, I'm not I'm the aggressive guy lawyer. I'm just not that guy. I'm really smart. People look at me and they think I'm aggressive. I'm not. I'm like funny. I mean, I'm aggressive. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not advertising. I'm the aggressive lawyer. Call the aggressive lawyer,
Right.
whatever. I'm a Christian. God has put me on this earth to serve my clients. I promise my clients they're the most important people in my life. And I've had a lot of great results because of that. So ignore the noise, and they talk about these things. OTT, the number's going to have to come down. Like, it's ridiculous what they're charging for that stuff. And I did the first thing of that, Pandora, when there's nobody else on it. And I'm like, oh, you're the only guy here. Yeah, well, there's a reason for that. And I didn't get a single client. I spent thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and it kills me. And that was, 8 years ago, I guess, when it was hot to do that. So, just have some perspective and don't run and do what the crowd is doing, kind of find your niche.